Hello and welcome to Prove Through You. My name is Malika, and my goal here on this channel is that you would walk by faith and grow in what you know so that God's faithfulness can be proved through you. Now, if you're new to the channel, here in the month of August, we are starting a new segment called Thoughtful Thursdays. And what that is applying practical steps based on a scripture from the Bible. And the scripture that we've chosen this month is Colossians, the 3rd chapter, and the 23rd verse, which says, "Whatever you do, do as unto the Lord." So for us, that means that we want to operate in a way that is honorable of the call that God has on our life, of the gifts that He's given to us, of the talents and skill set that He's given to us as well. So one of the things that we want to do is operate in the spirit of excellence. When we show up, put our best foot forward. When we speak, put our best voice forward. And the area that we are studying this month in the month of August is business and corporate tasks. So for example, we did an overview of what it means to be honorable and how we can operate based on Colossians, the 3rd chapter and the 23rd verse in our introductory video. And then we began talking about job searching. So how to look for jobs, what is that going to look like? What are the requirements? What are some of the areas that you can apply for? Whether you want to be a remote worker or if you want to be working virtually. So we talked about that. In last week's video, we went over resume building, how to write a resume, what should be included in the resume, what are people looking for when they are looking at your resume. So all of those things we have just been focusing on in the month of August. But for today, our video is centered around interviews. So we've kind of started from the beginning and we're going to continue to walk through different business and corporate tasks. Now, some of you may be an interview expert. Some of you may get a little bit nervous. And so I'm hoping that as we continue on in this video, something that I say or share would be helpful. If so, I would love for you to put it down in the comments below so we can get a conversation started. If you think this is a video that someone else could benefit from, feel free to share it with them. Let them know where you're getting all the gems and where you're getting the good bread from so that they can come back and eat here too. So the first thing that I want to talk about regarding interviews is appearance and arrival. Now, remember, because we are trying to keep the mindset of Colossians 3:23, you want to make sure that you can put your best foot forward when it comes to your appearance. So it doesn't matter if you are applying at a fast food place, at a fashion place, or for a marketing position. Always show up in a professional manner. Now, I'm not saying you have to get the latest and greatest from the design world. I'm not even saying you have to go to the mall. If it's not within your budget or you simply just don't want to spend that amount of money on clothing, you could go to a thrift store, you could go to a yard sale or a consignment shop. You can look on the clearance rack at the mall, at Target, at TJ Maxx, or wherever it is that you shop. If you really need to, you can seek help at a local church, see if they are doing any giveaways or if they have any resources that they may be able to direct your way. You can even ask a neighbor, if you're friendly with your neighbor, if you trust your neighbor, if they have some of these items that you can borrow. So when it comes to interviews, I would rather be overdressed than underdressed. So you always want to appear professional. If you need to get your hair cut or your hair done, try to do it at least the day before your interview so you're not rushing to get all of these things done. And you can get comfortable with the way that you look, the way that your hair is cut, the way that your hair is done, so that when you do arrive and they see your outer appearance, you appear confident and you appear comfortable with what you are presenting to them, because first impressions do in fact matter. Now, if you are having an in-person interview, some people say you should arrive 5 to 15 minutes early. I don't advise doing 5 minutes because that's cutting it kind of close. Within 5 minutes, you may realize that you have arrived in the wrong location of the interview. You may be all the way to the door and then you realize you forgot your profile, you forgot your resume in the car. Now you have to go back. Now you're sweating, you're all out of breath. You may have to do another personal hygiene check. I just really feel like 5 minutes is not enough time to present your best self because now we're rushing. Also, if you do 15 minutes, then sometimes 15 minutes takes too long, and one scroll on Instagram or social media or one phone call and one text message, and all of a sudden now you're late for your interview. So I always say try to aim for 10 minutes, because in 10 minutes that gives you time to double check to make sure you have all of the required papers. It gives you time to walk to the location, and it even gives you time, if necessary, to go into the restroom and do a last minute look over. Make sure you don't have anything in your nose, in your face, in your teeth. Make sure if you have on a wig, it's not sliding. Make sure you've buttoned everything up on your shirt. Make sure you don't have like a run in your hose and then maybe you need to take them off. So whatever it is that you are deciding to do, those 15 minutes will give you enough time to make sure that you can present your best foot forward. Okay. And so that really does matter. You want to be confident as you are walking into the interview. Be yourself, be professional, and be confident. Now, if you are doing a virtual interview, I would still recommend showing there about 5 to 8 minutes early, and that's just so that you can check any connectivity issues. You want to make sure that your camera's working. You want to make sure there's nothing distracting in the background. You want to make sure that audio is working, your microphone is working, the kids are laying down for a nap if they're homeschooled, the dog has been fed so he's not barking. You want to take those time, that 5 to 8 minute window, to make sure that you have everything that you need. Do you have your resume printed off to the side so that you can easily look down and reference it? Have you practiced your eye gazing on the camera? Are you making sure that you are maintaining strong eye contact? Are you making sure that you look as presentable as you feel, even when you're doing a virtual interview? Because it does matter. And by appearing and arriving early, it shows that you are proactive. It shows that you are a self-starter, and it shows that you have the ability to be punctual. And we already know punctuality is like a big skill set. It's something that people admire when we're working here. Everybody wants to make sure that we start on time. So if we say that the interview is at 2:30, that doesn't mean rush in at 2:30, try to plug everything up, and then you're getting to the interview at 2:35 or 12:35. You want, when it says start, that means hit the button, let's start, let's get ready. Okay. Now, the second reminder that I just want to insert when it comes to interviewing, the actual interview process. So you've already did the resume, you've already applied for the job, they've sent you the congratulations letter, they want to interview you, whether it's a group panel or an individual panel, whether it's in person or if it's a virtual interview. The next thing that I want you to remember is to prepare to position yourself. Okay. So before the interview even begins, prepare to position yourself. So when I say prepare, what I'm saying is, have you done any research on the company or the position that you are applying for? That way you will actually have talking points. You can offer something more to the conversation that would make you stand out, that would show that you took the initiative to learn about the company, or you took the initiative to learn more about the actual position that you are applying for. When I'm also talking about prepare to position, have you looked at your own resume? If you didn't create the resume or you had someone else create it, you still owe it to yourself to know what's on your resume, because whomever is interviewing you, they have talking points based on what is listed in your resume. So you want to make sure that if you have any skill sets, that you have fresh examples in your mind or fresh memories in your mind, so that when they ask you about those specific softwares and programs, you have a ready answer. If they ask you about a difficult coworker or a difficult project, you already have an answer. So be familiar with your own resume as well as the job that you are applying for. Another way that you can be prepared to position yourself is print off multiple copies of your resume. Just in case you thought you were going into a one-on-one interview and it turns out to be a group interview where there are 4 or 3 managers interviewing you for the same position, but each manager needs some candidate to be on their team. So you always want to make sure that you have it, because I would rather have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So if you have the ability to print out your resume, make sure you print at least 2 or 3 copies. If you don't have a printer at home, you can go to FedEx, you can go to the library, you can go to pretty almost anywhere, and they will be able to print off that information for you. If not, see if a friend or a neighbor has a printer that you are able to use so that you can do that. Office Depot, Office Max, things of that nature, so that you're able to actually print out what you need. Another thing, as we talk about, prepare to position yourself. You want to be professional, you want to be personable, but you also want to position yourself that in a way that shows that, hey, I'm prepared for the task and the challenges that may come along with this position. I'm prepared for those hidden questions that I know you're going to ask me. But you want to remember, you are a child of God. So we don't go in all cocky and prideful, because prideful is not something that the Lord enjoys. Matter of fact, the Bible says that he detests pride, but he helps the humble. So I'm not saying to downplay your skill set, because when you are in an interview, they selected you for a reason. Like, this is a boasting and bragging session. So I'm not saying to kind of downplay your roles and responsibilities, but don't go in thinking you already are, the sugar honey iced tea. There's a way to be confident without being cocky, is what I'm saying. Position yourself humbly, because whether or not you recognize it, yes, they are interviewing you for the position, but they're also interviewing you for their management style and for the coworkers. So you may not be applying for a customer service position, but if you are going to be in a position where you are engaging with other associates, other coworkers, they want to see that you are approachable, that you are trainable, that you are teachable, but that you are also confident. So make sure that you know how to prepare and position yourself for the application and the process that you are being reviewed for. Okay. Nothing wrong with toot your own horn. That's what an interview session is about, but do so in a humble manner. Okay. Don't act like your stuff don't ever stink. Don't act like you've never been in a situation where there's been a disagreeable situation, or you've never missed a time frame, you've never missed a deadline, because they know that in the realities of corporate and business tasks, somebody's going to drop the ball somewhere. So for example, when I was asked, has there ever been a time where you had a specific deadline and you were not unable to meet it? If so, tell me a little bit more about it. And I would say something along the lines of, well, yes, I did have this big project coming up and we were very close to meeting the deadline. However, we had system issues and we were not able to submit that on time. I immediately made my manager aware of the situation. I gathered all my documentation. I asked if there was a way that we could be able to extend the deadline. I owned up to the fact that I missed the time frame. I missed the deadline. However, I stayed later at work. I stayed an extra hour or two just to see if the system would allow me the opportunity, and it did. So even though I was slightly inconvenienced, I stayed to make sure that we had submitted that information. Now, granted, it was not on time. However, we did end up having a grace period to be able to do so, and I was glad that we were able to submit that information, although it was beyond the expected time frame. That's a realistic expectation. Things do happen. No matter how prepared you are for them, something may happen. Like, you can't predict when a system is going to shut down, but that happens. So if you do have an example where that has happened, don't be afraid to own it. Okay, so I didn't make it seem like I missed the deadline because I did and it was the system, but because I was in charge of submitting that information, technically I did miss the deadline. And I'm okay with that because I know I operate from Colossians 3:23. I put my best foot forward. I was trying to be honorable. I was trying to do the best that I could, but unfortunately, I missed the deadline, and that's okay. As long as you don't have a habit of missing deadlines, a habit of being late, a habit of not completing your tasks, people are more likely to overlook that slight imperfection because it happens to us all. You can't predict traffic. You can't predict when technology isn't going to work. You can't predict when there's always going to be miscommunication. So show yourself grace and prepare to position yourself in a humble way to let them know why you would be the perfect candidate for the position that you are applying for. Does anybody else have any experience with tough questions like that? It's like they are asking you questions and they already know the answer, but they're trying to see how you are going to pivot, how you're going to respond under pressure. Are you going to be honest, or are you going to make it seem as though, no, these things never happen in your world and your corporation? So I would love to hear from you in the comments below. If you've ever had like a tricky question in an interview, how did you answer it, or how would you have answered it now that you've had time to think about it and ponder on it. I would love to hear your feedback in the comment section below. So, number 3, the next thing that I would recommend is to relax and relate when it comes to your interview. And I say that because sometimes we get very anxious. So, for example, I'm an introvert. I don't like networking, but I will talk if I have to talk. And so sometimes when you get to your interview, you're overwhelmed because you're like, I really want to make a good impression. I want to put my best foot forward. I want to be prepared to position myself to be the candidate that they want to hire. But I just get nervous when I have to talk to people. It's like when people get nervous taking a test. And that's just something that you may have to remind yourself of over and over again. The people that you are interviewing with, they are just regular people. Yes, they may have the keys to the position that you are applying for, but God has the keys to your destiny. God has the keys to your future. So just try to keep that in mind. You're just having a regular conversation as if someone's asking you what you do for a living or asking you something that you're passionate about. Kind of treat that the same way. But I'm not saying to be really relaxed. You still want to be professional. You still want to be relatable. You still want to show them that you are able to have those conversations. And so, again, I'm very much introverted. But in my position and in previous positions, I've had to present informations to trainees, to new hires, to managers of different levels. And so, you just have to kind of trust God to give you the skill set and the courage to speak in a clear and concise manner because it can be done. Now, just because I'm an introvert, all that means is I'll have to kind of step up to the plate and do what needs to be done, and I will do it, and I will do it again as unto the Lord. I will do it with the spirit of excellence. But as soon as I'm finished presenting, as soon as that Q&A session is done, I need to put on my headphones. I need to listen to some music. I may need to walk to the break room, and then I can come back and re-engage. So being an introvert is not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that sometimes we may have to kind of withdraw a little bit to regain that energy, and then we can come back and get back into the conversation, and that's fine too. Now, another thing that I wanted to share while we were talking about relaxing, so that's the relaxed portion, just kind of, even if you have to hype yourself up with scriptures, I'm the head and not the tail. God, you said that my gifts will make room for me. Lord, you said that you would go before me and cause me to have favor with people and with you. Whatever you need to say to kind of get yourself together. So that kind of ties back into the appearance and the arrival. If you know that you normally get nervous and you need to have a minute to relax, try to get there about 10 to 15 minutes early so that you can go through whatever it is you need to go through, say a prayer, do jumping jacks, whatever you do to get yourself in the groove, and remind yourself, hey, I'm just having a conversation about what I do, what I offer, and why I should be the one selected for this position. The next way that you can be relatable is you want to remember in the interview process to relate your skills and experience to the position that they are hiring for. So that's why it's important that you already know what's on your resume, kind of know what they are looking for, so that when they ask you those interview questions, you're able to relate your skill set, your experience to your potential position. So if you know they are looking for someone with auditing or quality assurance or customer service or selling products, you want to make sure that you highlight those skill sets from your previous job or your current job if you're kind of in between jobs and looking for a different position. You want to make sure that they can make the connection of how your skill set and your experience is relatable to what they are hoping to get from you in this new position that you are applying for. The third way that you can be relatable is if you've taken the time to prepare, like we talked about in the previous step. If you've taken the time to even look at company goals or company values, is there maybe one or two values that they have that you have? So for an example, if the company that you are applying with does a lot of community outreach and you also do community outreach, that is a skill or a passion that can easily come up in conversations such as, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. Why should we hire you? Well, I happen to notice that one of the core values of the organization is community outreach, and I myself am very passionate about community outreach, Twice a month, I go with my family and my local church, and we serve our community. We go and help those who are elderly. We go and visit people who are in the hospitals, and we also have a garden where we grow food and we give back to our community gardens, or we give back to our neighbors. So that's a perfect way to tell them a little bit about yourself, that you believe in outreach, you believe in community. And then you could also think of something else, whatever their company value is, just find one or two and kind of tie that into the, well, tell me a little bit about yourself, or why should we hire you? That way they can know that, well, this person's done their research. They know about the company values. They know about, the company projects, and they are already on board. So it shows that you can take initiative, and it shows that you can put your best foot forward. So those are the ways that you can just relax and make sure that you are relatable through your resume, through your speaking and answering those questions, and then also that you've done your research. And again, whenever you're answering those questions, you want to be short, sweet, to the point, but you also want to be as detailed as possible. If it's a sticky situation, or if it's tell me about a time where you've had a bad experience, it's okay if you own it. Now, you may not want to share something that got you fired, unless that's just your testimony and you feel like God is leading you to share that in there. But when most of the times when they're asking for a tough situation, it's like, well, was there a conflict with a customer? What did you miss a deadline? Was there an error that was made in a huge audit, and what happened? Did you own it, or did you place the blame on someone else? Because mistakes are going to happen in your job, no matter how much you plan, no matter how careful you are. But the thing is, if you make a mistake, just own up to it. That's operating in Colossians 3:23. Work as unto the Lord. If you make a mistake, own up to it. It's okay. Don't let weeks and months go by and then they have to catch you. Just honor it and own up to it and say, hey, well, I apologize. I misunderstood the directions. I misunderstood the assignment. I thought it should have been this way moving forward. Is there a way that we can make sure that there isn't any miscommunication and that clarity is understood before I begin this project? That was the lesson that I learned in a time where there was miscommunication or missed deadline. That's kind of the way you answer those type of questions. Well, yeah, I'm going to own up to it. I did have a little situation. It was as a result of miscommunication. But one thing that I did learn in that situation that I believe is very valuable is to make sure that there is a clear understanding prior to me starting the project. I ask questions to clarify the request. I make sure that I repeat what was given to me to make sure that there is clarity and unity before I move forward with the email, before I move forward with the project. And I believe that that would really kind of help you stand out, because it shows that you own the mistakes, you are willing to learn, you're teachable, and that you can grow in those areas, and you're willing to get not only positive feedback, but constructive feedback. The fourth thing that I want to share with you regarding interviews and how we can do that in a way that is honorable to the gifts and the calling that God has on our life is, when it's time for you to close the interview, they normally ask, do you have any questions? I would recommend you having 2, maybe 3 questions that you want to ask, whether it's the manager who's hiring, who's doing the interview, or it's an HR representative who's doing the interview. So, don't be afraid to insert yourself into it. Now, some people will say, ask for the position. I just have to feel the room. I have to kind of get a feeling for how the interview is going, because again, we're interviewing them just like they're interviewing us. And so one of the questions I may ask is, well, if it's the manager, could you let me know what exactly are you looking for in the next associate that you hire? Because I would love to see if I already have those qualities, or if there's something that I could clarify in one of my previous responses. Another question you could say is, well, how is the team dynamic for this position? Or what are the pros and cons in being in this position? If it's a manager, well, how long have you been a manager in this area? Is there something that really stood out to you? What drew you to this area as a manager? So you want to ask those type of questions. I know we can always ask about benefits, like Does this organization believe in work-life balance? That's a very important question, with mental health, and people are just coming out of COVID, so we want to be able to make sure, well, do I have to sacrifice my family for my job, or my job for my family? If work-life balance is important to you, that's a great question that you can ask towards the end of the interview. Another thing that you can do is a thank you letter. Now, some people don't really do thank you letters. They feel like they're old fashioned, but every time that I have sent a thank you letter, it's always been well received. It always helps me stand out. And I believe that's because most people do feel like it's outdated, that they don't really understand that gratitude and going that extra mile really, really helps you stand out. Now, maybe about 10 years ago, I would actually handwrite a letter, but now I just send a thank you email, and I will do like a really nice thank you clip art at the bottom, or a picture from off of Google that says thank you. I want to make sure it's professional and appropriate. But let's say you are interviewing for a marketing or advertising or a design or social media job. Instead of doing an email, maybe you could do a thank you video to show, this skill, like, oh, I can use this program. This is how I created my thank you. And it will definitely make you stand out. So don't be afraid to think outside of the box, but do try your best to at least acknowledge the interview, say thank you, offer to answer any questions. And if you don't have a way to follow up, that's my next point. You want to make sure that you have a way to follow up with the interview process, with the hiring process. Most times they're not going to have a callback number in the email that they extended the interview to you for. So what you can do is on the way out say, well, thank you so much for this opportunity. Could you please let me know if there is a way that I could contact you if I happen to have any additional questions, or if I can just follow up with the interview process. They may not give you a telephone number. They may give you an email, or you can say, hey, I would love to just extend my thank you to the hiring manager. So if you are being interviewed by an HR representative, you can say, well, I would love the opportunity to extend my gratitude and thank you to the hiring manager. Is there a way that I can email them or contact them? Or do you guys have an email address where I can just send it and you can forward it to the hiring manager on my behalf? I would love the opportunity to just extend my gratitude simply for having the opportunity to be able to interview for this position. That's kind of the way that you can word that. And again, stand out, be different, do something that nobody else may have thought to do. And then if you get the information, make sure that you follow up, because you don't want to end it on a bad note when you've already had a really, really good interview. You want to make sure that you finish strong. That's that firm handshake. Can I answer any additional questions? Is there a question that you asked that maybe I didn't thoroughly answer? I would love to have the second chance to go back and just elaborate a little further to make sure I've answered everything that you've asked for me. Now, I hope that something that I shared in this video has been helpful. I hope that it's been beneficial. I would love for us to get a conversation started in the comment section. Have you ever had a bad interview? What did you learn from that interview? Have you had a really great interview? What are some things that you learned from some of your interviews that you would love to share? Because I would like to read it and I would like to help however I can. So as always, my prayer is that you would continue to that you would continue to grow in what you know and walk by faith, so that God's faithfulness can be proved through you. Because here on Thoughtful Thursdays, we're doing the practical steps. And if you have not had a chance to look at our previous videos, you definitely want to go back to the playlist and check those out. But on Meaningful Mondays, we are taking a little different approach, and we are talking about mentorship. So if you have any questions about mentorship, we definitely have some videos set up for that. If you wanted to look at our past videos, we've done budgeting, we've done friendships, and all types of videos. So I hope that, again, you have an amazing day. God bless you, and I'll see you again soon on the next video. Bye-bye.